Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. Today we're doing a video on Dani Moonstar, and this is going to be a BG's guide. What we're going to do is quickly look at her rotation in a couple of Realm of Legends fights, because she's a fairly complicated character and I don't want to waste any time voicing over BattleGrounds matchups by explaining how to use her. I'd rather do that in Realm of Legends, and then we can use the BattleGrounds fights to take a look at how to use her in those specific fights. What I'm going to be doing in the BattleGrounds fights is taking a look at three specific champions that Dani is very good for, namely Nick Fury, Korg and Baron Zemo, and go through a few fights I've had against each of them, showing the process of how I learned to fight them and giving any tips that I can about them. But without any further ado, let's get into the rotation and her abilities. So before we get into the actual fight itself, I'll just go through the main parts of her kit. So Dani is all about getting to 10 combos, which gives her an illusion passive. That's a little blue icon. When you block a hit, instead of them hitting your block, they will miss because you've just applied a falter passive to them. The illusion passive and the following falter are Dani's main parts of her kit. They're how to unlock most of her utility, and they're how to unlock all of her damage. This falter allows you to do two things. The first is gain neural arrows, and the second is gain prowess buffs. You gain neural arrows, which are a passive on yourself, every time the opponent misses you, and at the end of a special attack, that special will apply however many neural arrows as neuroshock debuffs. These are damage over time debuffs that deal energy damage and also prevent miss, but specifically for Dani Moonstar, they also heal block skill champions. You get the prowess buffs by actually hitting the opponent while they are faltered. So if you think about it, the general interaction between her illusion, falter, neural arrows and prowess is you get to 10 combo, get your illusion, take a blocked hit, trigger the falter, take a few hits into your falter, which gives you neural arrows, and then hit them a few times, which gives you the prowess. That sounds pretty complicated, but it'll make more sense as we go along. It's kind of a balance of getting to 5 neural arrows and 5 prowess, and then throwing a special. Her special one applies a 20-second passive slow, which is very helpful, and the final hit inflicts a energy vulnerability passive, which increases any energy damage you do. The special 2 is your big payoff, and when you activate the special with 5 or more neural arrows, you inflict an overload passive. This is the energy damage version of Trauma, if you remember Red Guardian or Quicksilver. It basically does any damage that you've dealt recently, and that can be physical or energy, any damage that you've dealt recently as energy damage itself. This is a 70% potency, so if you hit the opponent with a 1k medium hit, which is physical, it will deal 700 damage as energy. But this is also affected by the energy vulnerability passive from your SB1, so it's pretty much 1-to-1. However much damage you deal recently will be dealt as energy damage itself. And the last note about special attacks is that firstly, they pause faltered, but secondly, when you activate them with neural arrows, they remove all your prowess buffs and replace them with prowess passives. And then if you remember that hitting an opponent while they're faltered gives you more prowess buffs, what you can do is throw an SB2 while they're faltered. It removes your 5 prowess buffs, turns them into passives, and then each hit of the SB2 will give you more prowess. So there's a lot going on with Dani, but when everything lines up and you get used to her flow and her playstyle, there's a lot of damage to unlock. There are also a lot of other aspects to her kit, so I'd really recommend reading it and checking it out. If you do have any specific questions, please leave them in the comments and I will get to them, but I don't want to go through her entire kit now because, we're already 4.5 minutes in. So I'll jump into this Winter Soldier fight and we'll go through the rotation. So going into a fight, the first thing that I'm aiming to do is get to 10 combo. You can either do this before or after an opponent gets to a special. So here I'm going to go for a combo and end on 10. So I've got my illusion passive, that's a blue icon in the top, bait out this special, and I'm going to go in for a combo, and then I'm going to hold block, let him miss me a couple of times, which gives me neural arrows, then I'm going to hit him a couple of times and then throw my special one. You'll notice I did throw this while he was faltered, but to me, with the special one, it really doesn't matter. That's not your damage payout, so you don't need to get the extra prowess during it. What I do want to get to is 5 neural arrows though, because that gives me the overload passive. So at this point, I'm focusing more on the neural arrows. That's why I let him miss me a little more. I get the falter, I get the neural arrows, and then we go for a big SP2. We've got the overload passive, so we do a lot of energy damage, and that all came together pretty perfectly. Then I just need to go for one more special one, and the fight's over. And all of that went by pretty fast, so we'll go for another one and explain it again. So again, what we want to do is just get to our special one. It doesn't really matter how many neural arrows you have or how many prowess you have, because again, we're not looking for damage from the SP1. It's all to set us up. So we've got our illusion, bait out a heavy, and that gives us all of our neural arrows. I mean, I'm not going to complain if I get them, because it's just more damage, but I'm not aiming for it. So we throw this without the falter because it doesn't really matter. We've still got our illusion passive, so we can just pause here before we get to a combo of 10. That means I can use this illusion passive, get another one straight away, and then bait out this special to make sure that we're ready to set up the big SP2. We've got all of our neural arrows, and we just need a couple more prowess. We get them here, throw during the falter so that we get more prowess during. We've got the overload, and it does a nice chunk of damage. But yeah, that's kind of Dani's loop. I personally don't care about the neural arrows or the prowess up until special 1. And then after I do my special 1, I'll focus first on the neural arrows because I'd rather get to 5 to get the overload passive. That's a lot more damage than an extra prowess. So once I'm at 5, I'll focus on the prowess then and build up those. And then make sure you throw an SP2 during the falter. That's kind of it. So before we go into these battleground matchups, I'm just going to say a word on relics because they really affect Dani. In this video, you're going to see most of the fights I'm using a 6-star Gambit relic, and this is hugely impactful for her. A lot of her special attack hits are physical, and they gain the critical rating bonus that the Gambit relic gives, and this really increases her damage output. You're going to see a lot of crits when you use this relic. However, I also have a Gambit 7-star rank 2 duped, and that means that I probably want the Gambit relic on him instead. When I recorded most of this video, he wasn't duped, so I had the Gambit relic on Dani instead, but now that he is duped, I'm running the Gambit relic on him, and I also have a 6-star Storm relic, which I've taken to using with Dani. The Gambit relic is far better, and if you want to use Dani to her max potential, you probably want the Gambit relic with her. But I'm making a balance between two of my top champions, and I feel like it's more impactful on Gambit right now because Dani can still cope without it, whereas Gambit can't. Hopefully in the near future I manage to get myself a 5-star Gambit relic, and then I can run that on Dani instead. But it just will affect some of the matchups that you're seeing. I think I've only got one with the Storm relic in, but I'll call out what I'm doing differently and why I'm using it there. So we start off with this Nick Fury fight, and Dani is great for Nick Fury. Her signature ability means that when you apply a Neuroshock debuff and Nick Fury shrugs it, her sig applies a passive version of it instead. This isn't the marked passive, just to make that clear. That isn't the part of the sig that stops Nick Fury. You need to have some Neuroshock debuffs on him when he goes into his second life, and then that gets purified, applies the passive, and that heal blocks him. It's similar to Toad or Penny in that sense. The second thing to watch out for in Nick Fury fights is that at 5 tactical charges, Nick Fury can counter your miss. That means that you've got to watch his tactical charge. You'll see that I go for medium, light, medium combos a lot because I don't want to give him too many charges, and then I'll parry in between to make sure that I'm controlling them. If he gets above 5, you might have to parry a few times or push him to an L2 and reset. Just don't let him throw an L1 because that makes things very annoying. So because of the Gambit relic, Dani has such a great damage output that you don't need to go for the L1 first, especially when the ranks are equal. So what I'm going to do is make sure that I have my 5 Neuroshock debuffs. I'm going to throw this special 2 while he has the falter that applies the overload. We get all of our prowess, we crit a lot, and this final hit takes him down into the second life. You'll see he purified them and then replaced them with the passives, and one tick just takes him down. So one thing you need to watch out for with Nick Fury when you're fighting him is you don't want to kill him too early. And that sounds weird, but when you throw a special 2, if any hit of the special except the last hit kills him, you haven't applied the Neuroshock debuffs yet, and that will just let him regen up back to full. I do a couple things wrong in this fight. The first thing is throwing the special 1 in the first place, but I also, if I was going to go for the SP1, SP2 rotation, I threw it too soon. I really want to throw a special 1 when I'm on just below 2 bars of power, because the timing on that overload passive is, it's not super tight, but if the AI starts, you know, messing around, it can make the overload fall off partway through. So you see here, we just miss the window on the overload, but we also kill Nick before the final hit. He goes into his second life, and then he throws a special 1, and the fight just starts to snowball a little bit. I have already given this as feedback. I'd much rather the Neuroshock debuffs trigger during the special 2, because, you know, it's Dani's payoff moment, so it feels like that's the moment that you're most likely to kill Nick, and it feels weird to accidentally kill him too fast. But if that's the case and it stays like that, it's just something you have to deal with. It means focus on your neural arrows and just practice her. Make sure that you know when your special 2 is going to kill, and then, it sounds weird, but if you have to, don't do as much damage. Don't get as many prowess before you do it, and then kill Nick when you can. So we're going to switch to the current meta. This is something I recorded very recently. Dani is now rank 5 here, but this is also a rank 5 Nick. The first thing to note here is that I do have the Storm Relic, so that means that I don't really need to go for the SP2 straight away, because the increased crit rate isn't there, so I probably won't kill him too early if I go for the SP1. But also, because the meta is an unstoppable buff for 4 seconds every 8 seconds, I really want that special 1 for the passive slow, and if I had the Gambit Relic on, I'd probably kill Nick too early. So we do start off the fight as normal. We just want to do medium, light, mediums, make sure he doesn't get too many tactical charges, and then parry to take them down. We're going to wait out this first unstoppable because I don't have my special 1 yet, and I also want to throw it when I'm near 2 bars of power. We get our first illusion and we let him throw a heavy into it. We've got 2 neural arrows here. Remember, we don't really care about the neural arrows right now. We just want to get the special 1 off. I also don't throw it during the falter because it really doesn't matter. But now is the time that we want to focus on as many neural arrows as possible, so I let him throw a full heavy into my falter. I've still only got 2 prowess, but that's fine. The slow is turning off the unstoppable. We bait out this special and he's on 5 tactical charges, so I let 1 fall off so we can miss again. We get our last neural arrow, get our final falters, and then we throw the special 2 into the falter, getting more prowess. It takes him down perfectly. He shrugs off the neuroshocks and the passive shock supply, and he gets ticked down. So that is a pretty much perfect Nick Fury fight. In another meta, I'd probably prefer to have the Gambit Relic and go straight to an L2 like we saw in the first fight I showed. But here the Storm Relic benefits a little more because we don't want to kill too early. So back to the rank 4 Dani with the Gambit Relic. All of the gameplay that we're going to see now is from a rank 4 Dani. But don't worry, I am planning on doing a massive showcase with Dani as a rank 5. This is more of a guide now, so it doesn't matter as much what rank she is. We're going to take on a Baron Zemo now. I think Dani is the best Zemo counter in the game. So I mentioned before that every 10 hits on your combo you get an illusion passive, but there's actually a note in her kit where anytime a disorient is inflicted on her, or an intimidate or fragility, but in this case disorient, she gains an illusion passive, and then if you consume it, every 10 seconds while she's suffering from the disorient, she gains another one. This means that she has almost unlimited openings against Zemo, and the worst thing about Zemo is not being able to block. Zemo also cleanses a lot of your debuffs, but Dani's Sig replaces those with passives, so she pretty much counters Zemo perfectly. The only issue you're going to have is baiting his special 1 because his mediums push him so far back, but that's a very, very small issue. So here, because we got the Gambit Relic, we're going to go straight to SP2 again. If I was going a rank up, then I might go for special 1 first. So we want to bait out this first special because we want the disorient to be applied to us, and that means we can start getting all of our neural arrows. We get the illusions for free, basically. So I'm going to block, let him throw a couple hits into me, Here, because we get so many of them, I don't really mind what order I get the neural arrows or the prowess. I know that I'm going to get both. I just want to make sure that I get them. So here we bait out one more special one. We dash back, let him hit into the block. We've got all of our prowess and all of our neural arrows. And this special 2 has some really nice crits, really nice damage, and just nukes him. I'm only going to show just the one Zemo fight because that's pretty much all there is to it, but I'm pretty impressed with it. So next up we're going to take a look at Korg, and I'm going to show 3 Korg fights. The first goes pretty badly at the start, and I want to use that just to make a few points about Dani versus Korg. And then the next 2 are pretty perfect. There's one against a 7-star and one against a rank 4, so we'll be punching up in one and equal ranks in the other. The aim with Dani versus Korg is that I'm always looking to have an illusion when he gets his rock field back. You will have to deal with the first rock field like you would with any other champion that doesn't necessarily counter Korg's rock stacks. You're going to have to get a light intercept or beta heavy and throw a few light attacks, basically get his rock field down without eating damage. A lot of the time in BattleGrounds you end up with a relic node that gives you your relic pretty early, and these very, very much help. The biggest flaw I find Dani has right now is her light attack is not very good. It doesn't have a lot of reach, it's hard to get the intercept with, so it is definitely something that you're going to want to practice, and you're going to see it be an issue as we go into this fight. So the way I usually start off against Korg is I dash back and let him dash to me, or I shallow dex his medium and then throw a light attack. Here, Korg does not go for it, and I panic and throw my striker. I try and bait a heavy and do 3 light attacks, but Dani doesn't have the reach afterwards, so I change my plan. I go for another light intercept, and he doesn't do it. And then I dash back and accidentally trigger his unstoppable. And then here, I'm just going to pause for a sec, because there's a very, very cool tip that I really want to learn more, but I needed to use it here because I was in the corner. What this is a heavy denial. This is something that FinTech has come up with and is super, super useful in a lot of different situations. He's actually going to make a video on it, so definitely keep an eye on his channel. There's a lot of uses that he's going to go through, but I'm going to use this one here. What it is basically holding block and baiting a heavy while tapping your light button, and then as soon as you see the heavy charge, you want to stop holding block, throw your light attack, and then you can interrupt or deny their heavy. This is something you can do anywhere in the map, and I'm definitely practicing it more because I think it's very, very useful, especially against Korg, but here we had to do it because I had no other chance. So I hold my block, tap my light button, and as soon as I see him charge that heavy, I let go of block and we interrupt his heavy and get the light attack in, then we can carry on with the fight. We get a light intercept finally, and then we've just got a couple more rock stats to get down, get another light attack, and we're all sorted. So in this fight, this is early on with me playing against Korg, so I don't know what range I need to go for. This was only a rank 1 Korg, so we're punching up a little bit with my rank 4, but I would probably in future go for an L1 first. So we just got to get this rock field down again, and we use the falter to get our 2 light intercepts. We throw the L2 without a falter because I know that I can't get another illusion without pushing myself red, but this is fine. It does a nice, really nice chunk of damage, and we just need to get one more L2 off and that should finish. So we go for the striker, setting ourselves up to use some more light attacks to take down his field. We use the falter to get another light intercept, and the SP2 finishes him off. One thing that's really important against Korg is those light intercepts. So what you're going to see me do a lot of the time is dash back, let him dash in, do 3 light attacks or 2 light attacks, dash back again, and let him dash in again during that same falter duration. That means that I can get a lot of his rock stacks down, because in case you didn't know, if you light intercept Korg, it takes 1 extra rock stack away from him. So next up we're going for another 7-star Korg. This is a rank 1, and I know it's unawakened, but I'm going to treat this as though it's just awakened. So I'm not going to go for any attacks that would get me Rock Thorn's damage back. So starting off this fight as usual, we're going to dash back and throw some light attacks when he starts to move towards us, because that's when he's probably going to try and let us intercept him, but he doesn't do it here. I dash back and I see he's going to miss me, so I shallow intercept him. That's really useful. Then we use a striker and go into our light attacks to take the rest of his rock shield away. So like I said a little earlier, the main aim now is to make sure that we have an illusion passive when his rock shield comes back. We don't want to be stuck where we were at the start of the fight without a chance to get rid of his rock shield and have to light intercept again. So this lined up nicely. I threw my special 1, giving myself an illusion passive when his rock shield came back, and then we just used the falter to intercept. And now I know that I'm not going to be able to throw a special 2 before his rock shield comes back again. So when I get to 40 hits here, I slow down a little and I back off just enough so that I can use my illusion that I've just got to intercept him 2 times to take down the rock shield. I bait out this special and then we throw the SP2 just during the falter duration. The overload just falls off, but it's fine because we just about take him down. And I make a little mistake here, and I should have punished him during that falter a little quicker, but our medium kills him, so we wouldn't have taken rock damage anyway, but, you know, I could have done it a little sooner, and that would have avoided it no matter what. And then, hopefully you're not bored of Korgs just yet. This is an equal rank fight, so we managed to get our light intercept pretty nicely. I didn't actually realize it at the time, so I dashed back really early, but we're going to heavy deny him again, and then go into the striker, finish off the rock field, and then we have our illusion. We just want to make sure that we're going to get back to 10 before his rock field comes back. So I do a full combo, and I just know that I need to do one more combo, and then I can pause, wait off, and let him dash at me, light intercept twice from this falter, finish off, and then his rock field's gone. Now I just need to get above 30 for my last illusion, dash back, let his falter trigger, and then I throw the SP2 during it. We get some lovely crit RNG there, and all we need to do now is just finish out the fight. So we go striker, and then into light attacks, and the neuroshocks tick him down. So they were some very nice fights to do, and they're very useful to be able to do in BattleGrounds. Korg and Nick at least are very common defenders, and I included Zemo just because she's a perfect counter. I'm still practicing her and finding out where she's good and where she isn't, so that's why I've kind of used these 3 fights to do a bit more of a guide to start off with. But later on, like I said at the start of the video, I'm going to do more of a general showcase of her in different situations, in different fights outside of the skill class, and kind of show what else she can do. So please keep an eye out for that video, and if there are any fights that you found she's really useful, please leave them in the comments below. And like I said before, if there are any questions, just give me a shout. I'm happy to talk about her because she's fantastic. But thanks very much for watching, and I will catch you in the next one. Cheers.